Hi, my name is Achman Shekhar, and I've been asked to take a session on how to prepare for the Himachal Pradesh judiciary exam within a period of 4 months, given that a notification has been released recently. So, as someone who has also attempted this paper last year with some measure of success, since I was rank 11 or 12 in that paper, I believe that there are some points and there are some pointers and there are some suggestions that I have for people who are preparing for this paper and people who want to excel at this paper. So, the first thing that an aspirant may ask is that whether or not they should attempt this paper, because some people are worried that given that the number of seats, the number of vacancies that are there are quite limited, because the total is 21 and the general seats are just 11. So a person may feel that since there are so few seats, the chances of them clearing it may not be good enough, and therefore it will be wasted effort. But believe me, since I've written Himachal Pradesh judiciary exam before, I can tell you that it is perhaps one of the best, most well conducted paper that exists across the country. And preparing for this exam will not only help your overall preparation, but will also give you a brief idea, will give you a good idea of how these papers would look like going forward into the future. Furthermore, if you put in the genuine hard work that is required to clear this paper, trust me, even though there may be 21 seats, one of those seats can have your name on it. Therefore, I would recommend everyone to give the Himachal Pradesh judiciary exam. Another advantage that preparing for the Himachal Pradesh judiciary exam, apart from the obvious advantage of you covering the entire gamut of the syllabus within a time bound fashion and with a set deadline, is that you get to travel to the beautiful cities of Himachal Pradesh to write this paper, where you can not only explore the state and get to know about the beauty and the culture of the state. So I would therefore recommend everyone to write this paper, but write it with good intensity and focus. So therefore, in today's session, what I'm going to be discussing with you is that how you can prepare for this paper within the next 4 to 5 months. To do so, let us look at what the notification said last year, because the present notification that has come out only talks about the number of seats and where to apply for that particular exam. But if you were to look at the previous year's notification, which must be materially the same as this year's notification, we get to find out a lot of things about this particular exam, and we can also tailor our preparation accordingly. The most important thing that I want you to see in this notification, even though this is the last year's notification, but still the core principles of it remain the same, is that old criminal laws will be asked. So back, I think 2 or 3 months ago, the state of HP had announced that whatever exams they hold for the time being will be asked on the basis of the old criminal laws and not the new criminal laws, right? So therefore, IPC, CRPC, and Evidence Act are the acts which will be asked, and not BNS, BNSS, or BSA. Therefore, for those candidates who've been dreading preparing for the new laws or remembering the sections of the new laws, I think this is a blessing in disguise, where Himachal is giving you the opportunity to write the exams on the basis of the old criminal laws. Even though I would still recommend that you keep yourself updated, keep yourself abreast of all the changes that have been brought into the new codes. At least when it comes to remembering sections, you are only required to remember the sections as given in IPC, CRPC, and Indian Evidence Act. So that is perhaps the most important thing that one must note about this paper. The second thing that I want to show you is that there are some papers where the syllabus between the prelims and the mains may be different, but that is not the case with with Himachal. In Himachal, the notification also provides that the syllabus will be the same for the law papers as are asked in the prelims, and for the mains papers as are asked in the mains. And another good thing about the format, which I will tell you just now, is that let me tell you this. So the prelims is of 150 marks, right? Out of which 50 marks are for Civil 1. We will be looking at the gamut of subjects, but this is the general structure of the paper, how this works. And because this is fresh in my mind because I've recently given this paper as well, right? So 50 marks is for Civil 1, 50 marks is for Civil 2, and 50 marks are for criminal law. Now, interestingly, you get 1 hour each for all of these papers. 1 hour for this, 1 hour for this, and 1 hour for this. With, I believe, 1 to 2 hours of break in between. Here also and here also. So therefore, revising for this paper just before the thing becomes a lot easier, because you can therefore divide your preparation into papers, as is the case, right? This division ensures that you are putting as much focus on each subject, on each part of the syllabus as the other. Therefore, to ensure that you succeed at the Himachal Pradesh prelims, the most important thing that you must keep in mind is that you need to prepare and you need to put in equal amount of effort towards all of these subjects, right? Similarly, for the mains are spread across 5 days, I believe. Yes, mains are 5 days and they consist of 5 papers, where civil 1, civil 2, criminal law, English, and Hindi. At least this was the sequence that was followed for my papers. It might be slightly different for you depending on how the HPPESC decides to conduct these, right? So all of these papers you get 1 day each. So if this was on Monday, this would be on Tuesday, this would be on Wednesday, this would be on Thursday, and this would be on Friday. The civil law 1, civil law 2, and criminal law papers are 200 marks each. Also, the English paper is 200 marks, but Hindi paper is 100 marks. Right? I'll be discussing how to go about each of these papers in a later part of the session, in this session or in a later session. But believe you me, all these 900 marks are equally important. Even though the Hindi paper is only given 100 marks, I would argue that those 100 marks are perhaps the most important 100 marks that exist within this paper. So having understood the general structure of how this exam is conducted, obviously if you do qualify for the interview, then the process is very simple, that you go there, you interview for 30 to 40 minutes, and it's a very august board which takes your interview, and therefore the interview process, I believe, is pretty much similar across states. But the prelims and the mains do give you an opportunity of revising while attempting. Because as opposed to this format, the other states usually what format they adopt is, at least for the prelims, all of the laws are put in one paper and you are given 2 to 3 hours to attempt that paper. On the other hand, in Haryana, in Himachal Pradesh, what's happening is that they're giving you 1 hour each and 50 marks each for all 3 papers. Therefore, you have more time, and you also have time to come outside of the paper, recalibrate yourself, and really go forward with all guns blazing into the subsequent exam. Similarly is the case with the mains. So I believe this is perhaps one of the best formats of how this paper is conducted anywhere in the country, right? So prelims for 150 marks, mains for 5 days, right? Having said that, now let's look at what the syllabus is and what the syllabus requires us to do. Again, as I mentioned before, some states may have different syllabi for prelims and main. So their syllabi may differ from prelims or mains. For example, in Delhi, the syllabus for prelims is materially different from the syllabus from mains, because the syllabus for prelims is a lot more concise, whereas mains includes a lot more subjects in the syllabus, right? So as opposed to that, Himachal has the same syllabus for both prelims and mains, right? At least when it comes to the law. Languages are not asked in the prelims, but a basic understanding and a basic proficiency of the language is required in the first place if you are to attempt 50 questions within an hour, right? So this law syllabus, the legal syllabus, is the same. Right, now let us look at what the syllabus actually is. Before I do that, why don't I give you a draft timeline of how I see this entire process going, because believe you me that Himachal is also one of the most efficient states when it comes to conducting these exams. Whereas some other states may take a more delayed or a more relaxed approach. When the HPPSC gets to conduct these exams, they go at a rocket speed. They ensure that the entire process from the prelims to the interview, or even from the notification to the interview, gets concluded within 6 to 8 months. Therefore, if the notification has come out in December 2025, 2024, I predict that the result, sorry, the final result, that is, the final 21 selected candidates, will be declared by July, maximum August. This is maximum, this is top. Even though for me, June is my bet, right? But July, August, within July or August, it will be announced. Final result. So now let us look at when the three stages will happen within this time. So the notification says that you have time till 5th of January to fill up the forms. Therefore, it means that the prelims would likely be, since you have time till 5th of January to fill your forms, I believe the prelims would be somewhere on the second or third week. Third week of February. Latest by the last week of February. There is no way that the prelims of this exam will be conducted in March. So you have to prepare for the prelims and you have to be ready to clear the prelims by the second or third week of February. Now let us look at when the mains may be scheduled. In our year, I believe the prelims result had come out within 15 days of the prelims being conducted, and the first date for the mains, even though there was torrential rain which happened that year, and it caused a lot of destruction. So therefore, the Himachal Pradesh government was hard pressed, and they were not able to invite people to come and write exams when they were facing such acute weather. Therefore, the mains got slightly delayed. Otherwise, the mains would have been conducted within 2 months of the prelims. So therefore, if it's happening in second or third week of February, and now since it's in April, there will be no excuse for the rains, or there will be no scenario where there will be torrential rains which impede the progress of these exams. I believe that the mains will be in last week of April. Mains will be in last week of April, and the interview will be somewhere between June or July. And the result will be out as soon as the interview is over. And this is not fancy thinking. This is actual lived reality. You ask anyone who's sat through this process or who's gone through this process, these are the timelines that the HPPSC follows. And therefore, what this means is that timely preparation has now become the key. There is no scope for procrastination. These are the words that you must remember when you prepare for this exam. Right? Timely preparation is key. There is no scope for procrastination. So now the question then arises is what to study, how much to study, and where to study from. Where I'll be answering the where to study from in a different section. Let me tell you how to study and what to study in this session. Having understood that timely preparation is key, there is no scope for procrastination, because the prelims for this exam is coming in less than 2 months, is coming in maximum 2 to 2.5 months. So you have therefore only 2 to so therefore you have 2 to 2.5 months for prelims, right? And which also means 4 to 4.5 months for mains. These are the timelines that you need to work with, and this is the intensity that you need to start studying with, because only then will you feel ready to take on the challenge of the Himachal Pradesh judiciary exam. Now let us look at what the syllabus is and what are the things that you must focus on for for clearing this exam. Now there can be two scenarios. One scenario can be, there can be three scenarios in fact. Right? Three scenarios is that one, you have never completed your syllabus, completed full syllabus. This can be scenario number one, that you've just started preparing for the exam and therefore for such exams, and therefore you've not completed. And when I talk about completing the syllabus, I don't mean completed Haryana judiciary, Himachal judiciary syllabus. I mean any syllabus for that matter, right? So if you've not done all your major laws once or twice, or if you've not covered all the major minor laws also once or twice, that means that you fall in the first scenario, right? If you've never completed full syllabus. The second scenario is that you've completed the full syllabus, completed full syllabus once or twice, but have never seriously written a judiciary exam. Matlab, what this means is that your previous attempts, if there were not serious enough. You prepared or you attempted those papers without actually completing the syllabus, and only after that paper got over were you able to finish your syllabus. So if that is the scenario, you're within the second scenario. The third scenario is you have completed the syllabus and also attempted and I've also attempted some other judiciary exam with intensity and focus. Right? So the preparation technique for all these three scenarios will be slightly different based on how much you've done and how much is yet to be done. Right? So therefore, I understand that people are on different are in different scenarios and are at different stages of their preparation. So I cannot pigeonhole everyone into one single category and say that everyone should do this or that. I will be recommending separate techniques for everyone, for people depending on which scenario you fall under. So therefore, you identify which scenario you fall under out of these three. The fourth scenario can obviously be you're a professional judiciary aspirant where you've attempted multiple states and you have a very strong fundamental base of the laws, and therefore you feel fairly confident of your chances of clearing the prelims or the mains. That I would include within the third scenario, because I believe the majority of the people who are watching this video or who are thinking of preparing for this exam will fall under one of these three scenarios. Right? So having said that, now let us look at what each of these scenarios should be focusing on by having a look at first the syllabus that's going to be asked within this paper. So the syllabus is, this is, remember, last year's syllabus, but it will be, I'm sure it will be replicated by the subsequent syllabus when it's announced by the Public Service Commission. So three papers that are asked in the prelims, and right now I'm focusing on the prelims more. Mains I will talk about later, right? The three papers that will be asked in the prelims are these: Civil Law 1, Civil Law 2, and Criminal Law. Now, the criminal law syllabus looks longer, but it's really not, and we'll get to it in just some time, right? So, Civil Law 1, the paper 1 is of 50 marks in prelims. 50 marks in prelims. This is, I'm writing prelims marks. This is also 50 marks. This is also 50 marks. So what that means is that if you're spending 3 hours on Civil Law 1, you should also be spending 3 hours on Civil Law 2. You should also be spending 3 hours on Criminal Law. Since all of these papers are given the same weightage, are given the same amount of marks, you should also be giving the same amount of focus and the same amount of energy towards all these three subjects, right? Don't get lost with the feeling that because the criminal law syllabus seems the vastest, seems the most vast, I will be putting most of my energy towards that paper and I won't be focusing too much on Civil Law 1 and Civil Law 2, right? Having said that, so whosoever has studied the syllabus, whosoever has completed the syllabus at least once, for not, even if not for her Himachal, but for some other state, would have covered the following subjects that I'm tick marking, right? So you would have covered CPC, you would have covered Indian Evidence Act, you would have covered Specific Relief Act, right? Am I right in saying that? CPC, Evidence Act and Specific Relief Act you would have covered for sure, right? Similarly, you would have covered Indian Contract Act, Hindu law, Limitation Act, transfer of property. I'm hoping, even if you haven't, you must study transfer of property. But because transfer of property act is asked across a variety of states, I'm trusting that people who've completed the syllabus have at least completed transfer of property act once. Urban Rent Control Act they might not have completed. IPC everyone would have covered. CRPC everyone would have covered. And where is Evidence Act? So even though it doesn't say it, Evidence Act is also often asked in the criminal law paper, right? So you must know Evidence Act as well to attempt criminal law paper, especially the mains, because a lot of the questions which may be called as questions from the CRPC can only be dealt with if you are aware and if you're proficient in applying the provisions of the Indian Evidence Act, right? I believe some of you would have also covered the Negotiable Instruments Act because this also is asked across a variety of states, right? Having said that, now let us look at what are the things therefore that you might not have covered. And this is for the people who have not completed the syllabus, right? So you might not have covered the Stamp Act, especially the Himachal Pradesh Stamp Act, the Courts Act, the Himachal Pradesh Courts Act, Himachal Urban Rent Control Act, right? If you've not prepared for the Himachal exam, you would not have studied these subjects. Negotiable Instruments Act you might or might not have, so I will just put it like one small line. Excise Act I'm sure no other state asks, right? At least not that I am aware of. Wildlife Protection Act also you would not have covered. Indian Forest Act you would not have covered, right? And module on this 437, 438, 439 CRPC just shows you that what this shows you is that bail is important, right? The topic bail is important because both 437, 438 and 439 focus on bail, right? Gender stereotyping and its effects. For this I will give you a good source, right? All of these three things can be covered from one source, right? In fact, all of these six things can be covered from a single source, right? I will be discussing that single source with you in a later class. I might take sessions on that, but all these six things can be covered from one particular source, right? Also, then we find out that POXO Act is important. POXO Act is important. Sexual offenses particularly are important, right? Because all of these things are also sexual offenses and relate to the how the court deals with women and treats women when they come to the court seeking help against or seeking justice against gender stereotyping or offenses of the sexual nature, right? Then the other things that are important are the Juvenile Justice Act, the Protection of Women Domestic Violence Act. This also most of you would have covered, but let's assume that you've not. The Preconception and Prenatal Diagnostics Act, the POSH Act, the POSH Act and the Vishakha Judgment, Bangalore Principles of Judicial Conduct, and the Bangkok General Guidelines for Judges, right? I would say that when you're focusing on the prelims, this thing, these six and the principles of judicial conduct are important more from the perspective of the mains, because a mains question can often be asked from these provisions. A prelims question is very hard to come by. So my recommendation for everyone, if you're in the first scenario, my recommendation for you would be within 4 weeks, even though it's going to be hard, within 4 weeks complete the 4 major laws along with Contract Act and Hindu law. You cannot possibly take more than 4 weeks to cover all of these 4 subjects, all of these 6 subjects in fact, right? Because all of these 6 subjects are the backbone of your preparation, not only for the prelims but also for the mains. If you're not scoring well enough, if you're not confident of your concepts in these papers, you won't be able to clear the prelims in the first stage, let alone the mains, right? So therefore, if you've not completed your full syllabus, the next 4 weeks, by the time that before Baisakhi for that matter, before Makar Sankranti, you should have completed all of these 4 major laws and along with Contract Act and Hindu law. On the other hand, if you're in the second scenario where you've completed the full syllabus but you still have not seriously written the judiciary exam, I would say that you spend 2 weeks on revising your entire syllabus, right, that you've covered. That becomes very important for you to do, right? If you revise all of the syllabus that you've revised, you will get a sense of confidence where you will be able to take on a lot of the challenges head on, right? So if you've completed the syllabus but you've not taken a written judiciary exam seriously, I would recommend that you spend at least 2 weeks on revising your entire syllabus of what's being asked and what you've studied before, right? And if you're in the third scenario, you should spend 2 weeks on studying the acts that you've not studied. Right? 2 weeks on the subjects, on studying the subjects, on the acts that you've not studied. For me, for example, because when I started preparing for the Himachal Pradesh judiciary exam, because Himachal Pradesh judiciary last year was the first exam that I had given, was the first judiciary exam that I was given. So I was also like you in the second scenario, and therefore what I did was I spent 2 weeks revising all of my syllabus, all of what I had studied before, and then I moved on to the second part, which is this. So what you essentially have to do, if you're in the first scenario, the first 4 weeks you have to spend completing the 4 major laws along with the Contract Act and the Hindu law. It will require you to do a lot of intensive study, but if you want to have any shot of clearing the Himachal Pradesh judiciary, because remember this, I'm guaranteeing you that the paper will come out within 2 months to 2.5 months for sure, right? So if you want to have a chance at clearing the paper, if you want to have a chance of writing the mains, you must clear all 6 subjects within 4 weeks. On the other hand, the people who have completed the syllabus, I would say that if you've never written an exam before seriously, you must spend 2 weeks revising what you've studied already, so that you have a stronger base on which you can then build on, rather than starting from the beginning or starting from scratch or starting from a random point of your preparation. On the other hand, the third scenario are those people who've given several attempts, are people who've taken attempts seriously, and therefore what they need to focus on is to have a concentrated period where they can cover the entire syllabus. Because I'm assuming that they've covered the entire syllabus once before, they just need to focus on the smaller acts that are being asked in this paper, right? So for them, so the second scenario and the third scenario are covered with the same advice, just that the third scenario people have a 2 week head start over the second scenario people. So once the second scenario people have revised all their subjects within 2 weeks, I would then recommend them to spend 2 weeks on doing this, on studying the new acts, right? Therefore, after 2 weeks, you will be on the same level playing field as the third scenario people if you were to do it intensely. Now, how to study the new acts? Let me tell you this. All of these acts are minor acts only, right? Things like are minor acts. I'll tell you the 2 acts that you need to spend some more time with, but most of these acts are acts which will take you 1 day each. If you were to prepare for the Forest Act properly within the day, you will not only be aware of all the provisions that are relevant from the prelims perspective, but you will also be comfortable in answering the mains questions from the that may come from the Indian Forest Act. Therefore, my recommendation for you would be that all of the new acts that are coming within the paper are very minor acts. They won't weigh for more than 2 to 3 marks, 2 marks max in the prelims exam, and maximum 10 to 15 marks in the mains exam for most of these minor acts which are new or which are unique to the Himachal Pradesh state. The 3 acts that you must focus on and which form a core part of your marks are these. Are 1, the Himachal Pradesh Urban Rent Control Act. This is very important. Then it's the Himachal Pradesh Stamp Act. This is important from the mains perspective. And the Negotiable Instruments Act. All 3 subjects are really important. You must spend 2 days for each. Right? This is the bare minimum amount of time that you need to put, because all 3 of them have a lot of jurisprudence associated with them, especially Himachal Pradesh Urban Rent Control Act and the Negotiable Instrument Act, and you must spend some time on preparing for these subjects, right? I will not in this session talking to you about how to prepare for the prelims or how to prepare for the mains. I'll be largely speaking about how to divide your time and how to ensure that you are able to ready yourself for writing those prelims within 2 months to 2.5 months, and subsequently how to prepare for the mains or the mains within 4 to 4.5 months, right? Having said that, now the second and the third scenario people are well placed to clear the prelims. The first scenario people really have to fight and really have to struggle if they want a real chance, if they want a real shot of clearing the prelims. So assuming that they've covered the 6 subjects within the 4 weeks, I would then tell them you have 3 weeks to then cover all other subjects. Right? So in total of 7 weeks, you will be on the same position as the people who are in the second scenario who will take 4 weeks to do so, and the third scenario people who will take 2 weeks to be on the same level, right? So to do the same thing as the third scenario people, what will require the third scenario people 2 weeks will take 4 weeks for the second scenario people and 7 weeks for the first scenario people. So within this session, I'm just going to be talking about this And in the later part of the session, in a future session, I'll be speaking about how to take your preparation forward from that. Right. So this is a part. This is a larger part of my series on how to prepare for the Himachal Pradesh judiciary exam within a period of 4.5 months. And I hope that you've gotten a basic idea of how to complete, how to have a basic overview of the syllabus in the next weeks as fast as you can. So for the third scenario, people, as I mentioned before, you need 2 weeks. I've given you the game plan for the next 2 weeks. For the second scenario, people, which I believe will be most of you, I've given you 4 weeks. And for this first scenario, people, I've given you 7 weeks. In the next session, I'll be talking about how to take this forward. So I'll be talking about what the 8th to 12th week of the first scenario, people, looks like. I'll be talking about how the 5th to 8th week of the second scenario, people, looks like. And I'll be talking about how the 3rd to 6th week of the third scenario, people, looks like. I understand that this might be slightly frustrating because I've not given you the entire thing within this session. But trust me, I also have to ensure that all bases are covered and a tailor-made strategy is made available for everyone. Because if I were to give you the strategy that I recommended for the third scenario, people, most of the people who may fall within the first scenario and the second scenario may not be able to benefit from it. On the other hand, if I were to give everyone the strategy that exists for the first scenario, the second scenario and the third scenario, people will not be able to benefit. Therefore, this is the three-pronged approach that I'm taking to giving you some guidance on how to prepare for these exams, and I hope that this session was helpful. I look forward to see you in a future class very soon. Thank you so much for joining, and keep preparing, keep working. Best of luck.